Tracy was established in 1878 by the Central Pacific Railroad when the line from Lathrop over to Niles came through in 1869, and they established a coaling station out at what they called Ellis, which is like 3 miles west of where Tracy is now. And then in 1878, the Central Pacific subsidiary of the San Pablo and Tulare Railroad was constructed from up near Port Costa and came to Tracy. And where it intersected with the existing line, they established the new town of Tracy. And they picked up all their wooden buildings and hauled them by wagon and train to Tracy and established the town. It never was just a little farming intersection. It was always a town with hotels and restaurants and saloons.
I often think about the beginning of Tracy in that it must have been such a bustling place, with the locomotives going in and out almost every 5 minutes, just a hub of activity, especially at the 6th and Central location where our transit station is now. What a beehive it must have been of activity.
Different walks of lives, the different careers you could have here in this community, and specifically the agriculture part of the community. It was a blessing to be able to grow up in that environment as we were growing up here in Tracy.
There was dryland farming around the area of Tracy, mostly dryland wheat and barley, but it was almost all railroad construction.
My father came in 1914 and worked with the railroad, so it was a railroad town.
Tracy was part of San Joaquin County, but had no municipal services at all. It had no paved streets. In the summertime, it was just a dust bowl. In the wintertime, people said it was just like a quagmire because there was just no paved streets. There was a need for some civic services, and they passed petitions and got enough petitions and certified the petition with the county supervisors and established the election, which was held on July 15th, 1910. And that was the election date, and the outcome was that it was 92 votes for incorporation and 88 votes against it. By a 4-vote majority, it passed. So it was not a unanimous decision by any means. J.H. Stewart was the engineer with the San Pablo and Tulare Railroad, and he had been working on the railroad back in Ohio, where Lathrop J. Tracy was one of the members of the board of directors of this railroad. And when it came time to name this new town, it was established by the junction of these two railroad lines, he named it after his mentor, Lathrop J. Tracy. Lathrop J. Tracy never saw Tracy. He died before he did. His son finally came here in 1918, I think it was, but he himself never saw Tracy.
That story gets around some. I mean, the fact that he named the town after his mentor rather than himself, and that has been part of how Tracy does its business over the years.
Well, Tracy's always been a very caring town. A lot of people refer to it as a small town atmosphere, and they try to keep it that way because we have raised so much money through the various service clubs and organizations to help different people.
Yeah, Tracy's had a very cooperative spirit over the years. The establishment of the municipal airport by the American Legion was kind of a cooperative effort between a local organization and the city of Tracy. Later on, Tracy citizens sold stock in the Tracy Hotel Corporation and constructed the Tracy Inn in 1927. In 1948, they went together to build the Tracy Community Memorial Hospital. Just more recently, local citizens generated $1 million to help reconstruct and refurbish the Grand Theater, which has been a real jewel as far as Tracy's development in the last several years. So we've had a lot of good cooperation among a lot of different people in Tracy. It's been kind of one of the hallmarks of our community.
The railroad is the genesis of this community. It's the reason why Tracy is where it is. Moving from Ellis back up the track a little bit to Tracy was a deliberate act, and in doing so, put us at the bow tie of activity.
And watching the railroad, what it did and what it brought to Tracy, and what it gave us youth, the opportunity to express ourselves and say, hey, there's nothing wrong with not being portable, or being stable. You can move on and express yourself through movement. And to me, the railroad's been a blessing to all of us. I mean, even today, you hear the sound of the train coming through, and there's action happening, something's moving, and something from here could end up in New York. and make a difference in those communities over there.
At one point in time, it's gone through now, I think, a cycle, and it's beginning to come back. And I think what happened years and years ago in terms of Tracy's location and how that got mapped into railroads creates an opportunity for us in the future in how we're going to redevelop downtown.
I guess we forget that in 1910, the major mode of transportation was a horse and buggy, and that automobiles were just starting to come into prominence. And through the 20s and 30s, the growth of the automobile has really impacted Tracy, where before transportation was all centered on the railroad. And then it moved out to 11th Street, which became part of the Lincoln Highway system, and then later Highway 50. And so there were a number of restaurants and service stations that opened up on 11th Street, and that became a major function of Tracy.
11th Street, when we first came here, was the main arm between, say, Stockton and San Francisco. You have to go down 11th Street. And then all of a sudden, overnight it didn't happen overnight, but it seemed like 205 showed up.
Or with the highway system, we called the Triangle, and it was easy for truckers to get in here with the freeways on both sides of town. And so I think with our freeway system around here, it's helped the transportation problem.
Tracy's in the Triangle. It was decided by Southern Pacific to take most of its activity to Roseville, and so a lot of the railroad activity in downtown was curtailed. It changed how traffic patterns in Tracy happen and so forth, but as you said, it moved and shifted so much onto highways. We happen to be inside the Triangle, which is the I-5, I-580, I-205 triangle. And that has created another kind of hub for us. Again, Tracy's at the center point of transportation for Northern California, and really parts east to and south in a number of ways. And so it's had a distinct mark over how we've developed and how we're planning our future.
There used to be approximately 70 trains a day come through Tracy. It brought a lot of, a lot of gamblers came down from the Bay Area because we had not only gambling in about 30 places, all kinds of gambling and slot machines, but 2 or 3 houses of prostitution, and so there was a lot of people coming in here for business and other pleasure reasons.
It was an interesting history, a colorful history during what they call the Poker City days, when slot machines and card rooms and Chinese lotteries and other businesses of pleasure were frequented in Tracy in those days. So we've had a kind of a colorful history.
There were houses of prostitution and gambling continuing, even though the Attorney General said they were outlawed throughout the state. There was still some of that going on. I'm not saying that either person was guilty, but the chief was fired. There was a lot of people, about 300 attended the meeting, if I remember right, objecting to the city manager, but he hung in there and he said, no, I was brought in to clean up the town and I'm gonna do it. And he did.
I think growth creates a certain amount of opportunity, challenges and opportunity at the same time. We've tried to address the challenges right up front, and in addressing those, you see the opportunities emerge.
Well, the opportunities that it brought, we always felt that we had to reach approximately 70,000 before we could attract certain major retailers and also some good restaurants. And they were both badly needed because so many of our tax dollars were being spent out of town, and as you know, the tax dollars, if they were spent here, could help with our police, our fire, our parks, etc. So
to me, it brought a flavor to us that we could grow, we could be different, and we could accept the difference that we're coming into the community. And it gave us good economics.
Spurts of growth and development at different times, and Tracy's been able to respond and made a real effort to try to do a good job of planning and financing growth.
I look at Tracy staying close to its roots is the foundation that is here. We have some forefathers, and I have to look at the farming community, the ag community, and I don't want to leave any names out because I have a lot of friends in the ag community. They have stayed here. Today we have third, fourth generation farming communities here, families that are still farming and loving the land that Tracy had.
We're lucky because we had a downtown. We're, here we are, the Grand Theater. It was built in 1923. We have buildings that were built in the 19th century. So we still have the physical presence of the original roots of Tracy. And people have been proud of the fact that they have lived in a town that has a history.
One of the ways that we try to stay close to our roots while still growing is a respect for our history. So railroad theming is still a big part of what we do. When we build new buildings, we look at historical relevance of the architecture. This building is a good example, the City Hall, the transit station. We continue to put money and effort and time into preservation of buildings like the Fire Administration Building.
I was really happy that Tracy High was duplicated. It practically looks just like it did prior to the tearing down the old building and building the new. The architect said he would do it, make it look like the old building, and I think it has a nice architectural style.
We used to have our speech class up in the West building at Tracy High. So for them to be able to keep it, to give us the flavor, the ones that grew up here, that West building is still there, that brought a lot of character back to the Tracy community, because they say, hey, we didn't forget the past.
I know I've been involved in a group that we tried to make sure we save the old water towers, because we've always talked about, Tracy being kind of just an old dusty tank town in the valley, but you can't have a tank town without the tanks.
Those things are meant to protect our heritage and respect the agricultural and railroad aspects of our past. And so we have a very deliberate effort of protecting the small town character that are epitomized in railroad and ag, along with, at the same time, we're growing. And so we've tried very hard, and I think we've done a pretty good job at that. We were very deliberate about saying, yes, we're going to move on, we're going to grow, we're going to grow at a very particular rate, we're going to grow in a very particular way. So it's a very deliberate and planned process.
We still have a number of local businesses and a very attractive downtown. The city spent a lot of money in the last several years with a new streetscape and new trees and new parking lots. The parking district was established. So Tracy's been working at maintaining the presence of its downtown, the importance of it. People realize the importance of a downtown to the community. And
Tracy will continue to grow and prosper. We're an ideal location, an hour to the ocean or Bay Area and an hour to the mountains the other way. And we are the gateway when they come over the hill. Tracy's the first city they come into. And that's what Tracy was established in 1878 because of our geographic location. And that geographic location is still going to play a major role in Tracy's development, and we'll probably see more development. I think we've learned a lot how to do things and maybe how not to do things, and I think Tracy is kind of positioned to do a good job of moving ahead.
And if we all come together for the future to wrap it up together and say, hey, there is a great community here. How can we embrace it and continue to prosper together? Because we are here. And to me, as I always say, we're here to stay as long as we help each other grow and take it to the next level. And I feel the vision of Tracy is very prosperous. To bring this community together was the folks that came here. And they were from all different types of backgrounds. And if I can look at that scenario, knowing the background of Tracy, that's actually that brought our family here to this community.
The original farmers that came here to grow dryland wheat and barley many of them were Germans who came from northern plain of Germany and knew how to grow grain. So a lot of the roads in the Tracy area, we're talking about Schulte Road and Von Sosten and Lammers Roads, are all named after the German farmers.
There's a lot of Japanese here there and have been for quite a while. In fact, we started a Sister City program and adopted a city in Japan. We have a lot of Portuguese here, and we have adopted a city in the Azores.
A lot of people moved out of the Bay Area to Tracy, over the last 20, 25 years, and you get a real mix of populations.
People accepted you, no problem. Back in those days, you could see that I would deliver newspapers around Southside Tracy, and there was every culture that you can name pretty much here.
I get invited to a lot of great. Just the last weekend, I was at the Portuguese Festival. I was also at the Juneteenth celebration on the same weekend. In 2 weeks is the Filipino celebration, and it just goes on and on that way. And it's just so exciting to see how Tracy is kind of a map of America in terms of people can come here, keep their be great Americans, and keep their ethnic diversity and their culture alive, and it's just been a great experience to see us broaden in terms of who we are as a city, and certainly that ethnic diversity has brought us that opportunity. I think there are a number of things that stand out about Tracy over the last 100 years. Certainly, we've had to make transitions from dry agriculture to irrigated agriculture way back in the early 20th century, from strong railroad presence to no railroad presence, to two big plants that dealt with beets and tomatoes to no plants that deal with beets and tomatoes. A lot of transitions over the years.
A lot of California towns would love to have an old downtown and the history that Tracy has, but we have it, and we've been here for 100 years in city government alone, and a lot longer just as a community.
If I look back at the 100 years and what I've been able to read, I do a lot of reading, soul searching, and to today, and then what the future holds, I feel there's a big quality future.
What we find ourselves today is sure a town that's going through economic challenge, just like every other city in the country, but one that is working together to get through it. And so I'm very proud of our ability to be resilient through those challenging times, be able to make those transitions in a successful way, and then to be able to move forward and create something that may be even better.